I have not had to deal with blossom end rot on my tomatoes at all this year. But that doesn't mean that I haven't in the past or that I won't in the future. If you've waited months for a tomato harvest only to see a dark, sunken, leathery patch on the bottom of the fruit, it can be very discouraging. Blossom end rot is probably one of the most talked about tomato topics online this time of year, but I feel like the remedies are either 1, downright wrong, 2, take more effort than they're worth, or 3, sound patronizingly simple. What finally helped me to take action and reduce blossom end rot on my tomatoes was understanding 2 things. Why popular fixes don't actually work, or they seem to work, but it's not the actual remedy, and understanding the true why behind the cause of blossom end rot. Because once we understand what's going on, some of which surprised me, it's much easier to prevent it in a more informed way instead of grasping at the latest gardening hack that may or may not work. So first, let's talk about some bad advice. We'll talk about what doesn't work because there's a lot of misconceptions. First, eggshells. For years, I would crush eggshells and bury them in the planting hole at planting time, thinking I was adding calcium to prevent blossom end rot. That makes sense because blossom end rot is caused by a lack of calcium getting to the fruit. But the problem, and why I still got blossom end rot even while religiously adding eggshells to the planting hole, is that eggshells decompose slowly. We're talking months to years. By the time calcium is available to your plant, your summer is over. They're a fine long-term soil addition, but they will not help a tomato that is struggling in July. Second, what about Epsom salts? This one is everywhere, and I understand why people believe it. They dissolve it in water, water it in, and the blossom end rot clears up. But Epsom salts are magnesium sulfate, and there is no calcium in them. If you've done this and found blossom end rot cleared up, what most likely helped was the water. The Epsom salts simply came along for the ride. And the thing is, calcium and magnesium need to be in balance. Adding Epsom salts in some cases can actually hurt, not help. Third, I've seen some gardeners reach for calcium foliar sprays. I personally have never done this because I'm more of a lazy gardener, and foliar spraying is more work than I want to do most of the time. The idea though is that you spray the calcium on the leaves and the plants absorb it. But calcium applied to the leaves cannot travel back into developing fruit. The plant system simply doesn't move that direction. So basically you're coating your leaves with something that stays in the leaves. Now all of these remedies may get some credit because blossom end rot is the most common on the first fruits of the season. By the time later fruit sets, it often isn't as bad, and whatever someone tried early on looks like the fix. Now I'll explain in just a second why early fruit is more vulnerable. That's actually one of the most interesting things that I learned while digging into this. So what's actually happening when we see blossom end rot on the end of our tomatoes? Here's the thing, we know that blossom end rot is caused by a lack of calcium, but we automatically assume that that means we need more calcium in our soil. But if you're growing in an amended raised bed soil or have a healthy garden, your soil almost certainly has plenty of calcium. My soil tests have confirmed this year after year. The problem usually isn't calcium in the soil, it's whether or not your plant can deliver calcium to the fruit where it's needed. Now bear with me while I get a little scientific, but I think you're gonna find this as fascinating as I did. Calcium moves through a plant carried up by water, from the roots upward through internal water channels, and it flows toward wherever the plant is actively releasing moisture, and that's mostly the leaves. Leaves are constantly releasing moisture through tiny pores, which creates an upward pull. Fruit barely does this at all because the skin is almost sealed. So the fruit ends up last in line for that calcium carrying water. And then we go a little bit further and the blossom end is the furthest point from the stem, the very last stop. And research has found that during just the first couple of weeks after a tomato fruit sets, that blossom end is supplied by only 2 tiny water channels. The blossom end is operating on the thinnest margin in the plant. Any disruption in watering during that window, even a short one, and those cells don't get what they need to develop. The damage is done before you ever see it. Now, once blossom end rot shows up on a fruit, your fruit won't recover. I recommend just cutting it off the plant so the plant continues to produce more fruit that season. And if it's a small spot, you might be able to cut that part away. What you do from this point forward is protecting the next round of fruit setting after you stabilize things. Now let's go back to why early fruit is more vulnerable. Because if you've done this before, you probably noticed that your first tomato fruits, especially paste tomatoes, which we'll get into in just a minute, are often the ones that you notice this on first. But why? Early in the season, your tomato plant is growing fast. The top growth is outpacing the root system. The roots haven't had time to establish deep, widespread access to soil moisture. So even with consistent watering, the plant is working harder to move calcium up to the rapidly developing fruit. As the season goes on, the root system catches up. We've got deeper roots with more access to consistent moisture in the soil profile and a plant that's settled into a growth rhythm rather than a growth sprint. Later fruit benefits from all of that. That's why blossom end rot tends to show up on the first tomatoes of the season and then ease up later. It's the root infrastructure, not luck. And it's why what you do in those early weeks matters more than anything else. Now, one more thing on soil. Even calcium-rich soil can lock out calcium if your pH is off. The target range for tomatoes is about 6.5 to 6.8. If you get too acidic, calcium becomes harder for the roots to access, and then too alkaline, say above 7.0, the same problem, other direction. A soil test can tell you both. If you haven't done one and you consistently have issues with blossom end rot even after taking care of the watering, it's worth it to check it out. Now, I'm sitting in front of a whole bed full of paste tomatoes, and these are the ones that I mentioned before that have a higher risk of blossom end rot. And here's why. With paste tomatoes, we often have large, elongated fruit and less moisture in the fruit because they're more meaty. And this means that there's greater calcium demand because there's further for the calcium to have to go to that blossom end. And there's also less moisture to carry it. So let's talk about a common variety called San Marzano. These types are very prone for this reason, and Roma also falls into this category. But large slicing tomatoes are moderately susceptible as well. Bigger fruit need more calcium, so any watering inconsistency during sizing hits harder. The great news is grape and cherry tomatoes have the lowest risk. Smaller fruit, lower calcium demand, shorter distance to travel. You rarely see blossom end rot on cherry types, and when you do, it's usually a serious sign of watering issues. Okay, so we have the science behind us, so let's talk about what actually can help prevent blossom end rot and what I've been able to do to try to lessen the blow that blossom end rot gives my tomatoes. But remember when I said earlier that some blossom end rot advice seemed patronizingly simplistic? It's because the real answer to preventing blossom end rot is consistent watering. But now that you understand the why behind the condition, you understand that it's simply just that simple. Calcium cannot move through the plant without a steady water flow, and the critical window is from fruit set through the first 2 weeks of sizing up. That's when the blossom end is on that thin margin that I mentioned. That's why it's so important to dial in your watering before you see symptoms, because by the time you see blossom end rot, those fruits are already lost. And here's what I found in my own garden. What matters most isn't how much you water in any single session. It's the rhythm. Letting the soil dry out significantly between waterings, even once during the early fruit development window, is enough to trigger it. I noticed this first during dry summers when my irrigation was struggling to keep up, specifically when I grew in straw bales and one drip line wasn't cutting it. In later seasons, when I started growing my tomatoes in raised beds using my Garden in Minutes garden grids, like this raised bed behind me, this gave me consistent, deep coverage, and the issue almost disappeared. While intentional, consistent watering is the primary lever that I pulled to prevent blossom end rot, it wasn't the only one. There's one more that I'm learning more about each year. Variety choice, especially if you're growing paste tomatoes, is important. I started noticing that some varieties, specifically Roma and San Marzano, seem to be more susceptible to blossom end rot. Then I started testing other varieties like a paste variety called Pomodoro Squisito. This is an improved San Marzano type that was bred specifically for heat and humidity tolerance and also showed some resistance to blossom end rot. The performance in my garden has been meaningful. So when you're choosing especially paste tomatoes, look at what the breeder selects for, and if a particular variety is that's more resistant to blossom end rot, most likely it's going to be in the description in the seed catalog, because that's something that a lot of us want to lean into. Now I want to come back to what I said at the beginning. My tomatoes still do get blossom end rot at times. Usually it's on the early fruit, usually it's on a pace variety, and usually if we've had a stretch of irregular weather that threw off my watering rhythm before I could compensate. Now that's going to happen. But understanding what's actually going on underneath, the root system is still catching up, those two thin channels at the blossom end, the early fruit carrying most of the risk, that's how I changed how I responded to it. And this is so much easier than adding something extra to the planting hole or taking the time to try a new spray. As with most things in gardening, once I start digging into the basic science, it really helps me to understand what's going on underneath and helps me to make better decisions. Now, I mentioned the varieties that I'm growing this year. You can see I've got quite a few behind me. If you want to see the tomato varieties that I'm actually growing this season and why I chose each one for me in Arkansas in Zone 8A, you can check out this video next.